Hi, everybody. This is Skip Alzheimer, and welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show. Um, that was a geologist scrapbook, and somebody asked what year that was, and it's hard to say. Basically, we didn't see a year on it, and a lot of these films had different titles at different times, and they weren't registered with the Copyright Office, and it was just kind of this constantly coming up with new stuff, re-editing footage that they had to kind of put together these new subjects. And so it's hard to really pinpoint it. We found that most films from this collection, the Mogul Brothers collection, which is part of the Oregon Archive in Pittsburgh, most of them are from the late 20s, early 30s, but it's kind of a crapshoot. We don't know. There's probably little to no documentation. Some people noticed that Educational Films was the company, or Educational Pictures was the name of the company that put this out, and they put out a lot of things that were not educational, that were just interesting shorts, comedy, drama, etc. So, yeah. So we watch old 16mm films and delight in showing them to folks like you. And you comment on them, and we like that. So, I want to know what you think about these kitchen ideas. Enjoy.
Here's a kitchen that represents gracious living to delight American women. An idea kitchen with 26 specific features. If you plan to build or remodel, you'll find many ideas for your kitchen. All inexpensive fir plywood. These ideas add up to a truly modern kitchen, full of time and labor-saving conveniences. A friendly, open-hearted kitchen because of the warmth and charm of these real wood cabinets. Let's see how these 26 ideas are organized into 7 basic work centers. The serving center is next to the dining room. Here's the sink center with built-in dishwasher. The planning center, a compact kitchen office. Here near the refrigerator is the mixing center. The cooking center is close to both serving area and sink. A utility storage center with plenty of room for canned goods and cleaning equipment. Handy, yet happily out of sight from the kitchen, is the laundry center. You can use all or any one of the features contained in these work centers to remodel the kitchen you already have, or in building a new home. Now let's see how these work centers actually work for you. Starting with the sink center, you'll find the planning goes beyond the rich plywood cabinets to features like this self-opening garbage disposal can. Fresh fruit and vegetables right where you want them, arranged so that you can pick out just the ones you want. Your selection made, you'll probably need a knife. Then, a cutting board. That's what home economists mean when they talk about efficient work patterns. This is the planning center, a handy place for your telephone, recipes, and want list. Actually, it's just a simple built-in desk anyone can make with fir plywood and plans you get at your neighborhood lumber dealer. The meal planned and recipes selected, it's exactly one step to the mixing center, complete with swing-up mixer shelf. Here again, storage is planned to save time and steps. Everything you need at your fingertips. Kitchen designers call it point-of-usage planning. Makes sense, doesn't it? And notice the drawers, how the designers have gotten away from the antiseptic look by using traditionally good-looking, durable wood fronts combined with metal lining. Oh, good. It's going to be an apple pie coming up. Utensils right where you need them. Come to you storage that ends reaching in and over. Here's real comfort. A plywood lap board that lets you sit while you work. Another work-saver feature you can build in your own kitchen. Very easily, too. You know that pie is coming along in great shape. Must be about time for cinnamon. Yep, cinnamon it is. With this sliding spice shelf, it's right up front where it belongs. Larger items store neatly behind. Looks like the pie's about ready for the oven. This built-in range and oven is a big improvement over the old-fashioned kind. Plenty of work surface around the stove, and the oven is the right height for easy usage. And because plywood built-ins can be made any size or design you desire, you can place your range and oven exactly where you want them. You can feature the warm, honey-colored tones of the natural wood, or use bright, accenting paint finishes as you prefer. And when you want to redecorate, you can refinish those smooth wood surfaces as easily and as often as you change your mind. Next to the built-in oven is more wonderful space-saving storage. A place for trays. The dividers are removable. Muffin and pie pans here, and more roomy storage for utensils, right where you want them, near the oven. Remember, we told you that anyone can build any of these work-saving features. Let's see how easy it is. This unit above the oven is simply one box on top of another. No complicated fitting or framing, just squarely cut pieces of plywood butted together, glued and nailed. The same kind of simple construction is true of all the features in this idea-packed kitchen. It's easy to alter dimensions to fit your needs exactly. New type hinges make the job doubly easy. They're economical, simplify building, add beauty because they're almost invisible. And see how well they work. Now a look at the utility storage center. At left, the cleaning closet. At right, the canned goods cabinet. To enjoy the convenience of once-a-week buying, you need plenty of storage for canned goods. These plywood shelves are adjustable. You can raise them for tall cans, lower them for baby food. Here's a good place for bottled goods, even those troublesome tall ones. This big utility closet is a real work-saver. Handy shelf door storage keeps soaps and cleaners within fingertip reach. And talk about saving steps. Here's a go-with-you cleaning caddy that ends running back and forth. The whole utility storage center closes off neatly, and the painted cabinets here blend nicely with the natural wood in the kitchen. Modern appliances fit into these surroundings like gems in a fine setting, and more ideas that can bring beauty and convenience to an area traditionally drab and uninviting. What a grand idea. A laundry cart on wheels. Another easy do-it-yourself project. Conveniently divided, colored clothes on one side, whitewash on the other, or any sorting you wish. More supplies and accessories adjacent to the work area. Even a special soap cupboard. Uh-oh, pie must be ready. Ah, perfect. And it's ready to serve. So let's follow and take in the serving center. Here again, clever design and good-looking materials have teamed up to create this convenient serving center. It's a handy serving counter on one side, a snack bar on the other. This hanging cabinet puts dishes within easy reach from either kitchen or dining room. Here's another space saver. This revolving shelf unit does away with waste corner space. Yes, there usually is time for a leisurely cup of coffee in a well-planned kitchen. Coffee and, why yes, I would like a piece of pie. But first, let's tell our viewers more about the free plans for these exciting kitchen features. Your local lumber dealer has plans for conveniences just like these. Special free do-it-yourself plans for the serving center, the revolving shelf unit, cleaning caddy, kitchen desk, all of the 26 ideas in this kitchen. Whether you do the work yourself or have it done by a local carpenter or cabinet shop, you'll find these fir plywood work savers help you have a beautiful and efficient kitchen, tailor-made to your own individual taste and preference. Designed by home economists and architects to give you planned work patterns, efficient work centers, the rich beauty of real wood, and all the conveniences of a truly modern kitchen.
So here's Skip Adventures in Lasagna Time. It's the lunchtime streaming show. Enjoy. There is some steaming hot lasagna, and I'm eating it because I love lasagna. Me and Garfield. Let's hold this. Film suddenly ends. Where did it go? And then there's an ad for Skip's Lasagna, $100. So these are the homeschooling kids and their art. And it seems to be a situation where they acknowledge that I like lasagna, but my lasagna is taken away from me. That's a recurring theme here. So it's pretty great. And in most cases, it is Katrina, my wife, that has taken my lasagna, or at least has taken a bite out of it. So anyways, speaking of taking, this is Taking Commas Aside. It's on our scanner that we have right here. Enjoy. Hold on.
This is Dr. O.G. Whiz, world-famous comma hunter and super expert on commas in general.
Thank you. Whoever you are, yes. I've hunted commas all over the world. And let me tell you, I've found some commas in some pretty strange places. You know, some people think it's wrong to hunt commas unless you're a teacher. But the fact is, a comma in the wrong place can cause a lot of trouble. We'll take this big one, for example. I found it hanging outside of a sentence, trying to take the place of a period. Can't do it. I did it a favor by bringing it inside the sentence. All commas belong inside sentences. Let me introduce you to Horace T. Punctuator, the inventor of the comma. If Horace could speak,
Comma,
he would say,
comma,
there really isn't much to it. In fact,
comma,
Horace got the idea for the comma while watching an old-fashioned melodrama. But I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. First, hear this. I'm going to show you just 2 ways in which you can use commas. That's all, only 2. And if you practice these 2 things, it should take care of the majority of your comma problems. Here they are. Notice that my fingers never leave my hands. There they are. Asides and betweens. You don't know what those terms mean? Well, don't worry about it. In this film, we're going to concentrate on asides. Now, what is an aside? Well, just watch some of this melodrama.
Aha!
Oh, Squire Notworthy, what are you doing here?
I heard about your trouble. Little does she know that I am the cause of that trouble. And I came to help.
Did you see that gesture? That is an aside to the audience. In melodrama, when you want to give the audience a little extra information, it's called an aside. The aside is something in addition to the main part of the sentence, and it tells a little bit more about what's going on. Watch now for the asides.
I'm sure that your friends, whoever they may be, will come to your rescue.
I thank you for your sympathy. If that is what it really is. But I think I can solve my own problems.
The grammar experts have other names for asides. What is it they're called?
Parenthetical elements, or sometimes non-restrictive subordinate clauses.
Oh, well, I just call them asides. You know, some things added on the side, asides. If you look closely at people in conversations, you can often see them make asides. Or they don't put their hand to the side of their mouth. But if you watch very carefully, you can spot two asides in this ordinary conversation.
I saw your neighbor, the one with the bleached hair at the supermarket yesterday.
I haven't seen her for, let me see, about 3 weeks.
Did you spot the two asides? The one with the bleached hair and, let me see. Well, so far, we've only seen asides in conversation. However, Horace T. Punctuator decided that he wanted to use asides in some of the sentences he was writing. At first, he did it this way.
When you see Helen, my sister, please tell her to...
Wait. There was something wrong with that method. The person reading the sentence later wouldn't see Horace moving his head aside. And then, Horace thought of this great idea. He made a dot for a tiny little head, and then showed that he was moving it aside. He put one where he turned his head aside, and one where he brought it back. And there it was right on the page. Horace had taught the world to enclose the aside in commas. Today, anybody can do it. If you want to, you can even do it in a melodrama.
I wish Jack, that handsome fellow, were here now.
Your friend, I do believe, is not dependable.
If only my father, whom I dearly loved, were here to advise me.
Commas might even enclose the asides in ordinary conversation.
I saw your neighbor, the one with the bleached hair, at the supermarket yesterday.
I haven't seen her for, let me see, about 3 weeks.
An interesting thing about asides, if you leave them out, the sentence still makes sense. Watch.
I saw your neighbor at the supermarket yesterday.
I haven't seen her for about 3 weeks.
See what I mean? The aside is something extra. We have, you will notice, been using 2 commas every time. Can we ever enclose an aside with just 1 comma? If you ask me, the answer is yes. Why? Because all commas belong inside the sentence. So if you ever have an aside at the beginning or the end of a sentence, it only takes 1 comma to separate it from the rest. Now, I'll demonstrate. Here's an example of an aside in the middle of a sentence. The answer, if you ask me, is yes. Now, here's the same aside at the beginning of a sentence. If you ask me, the answer is yes. And now, here's an aside at the end of a sentence. Blondes have more fun, they say. And that's all you need to know about punctuating asides with commas. This is conceited Connie. She is so conceited, she never encloses her asides with commas. She thinks we can read her mind. But we can't, so nobody knows what she's trying to say. This is the way she writes a sentence. No commas must mean no asides. So this is the way one of our actors might read her sentence.
People I like not. Those I dislike, like me.
Is that what you meant to say? Well, I didn't think it was. How can the reader know where the aside is if you don't put the commas in? Put the commas in. Now we can read it the way you meant it.
People I like, not those I dislike, like me.
If you practice just one thing, many of your problems with commas will disappear. Just learn to recognize what is the main thing you are saying and what is a side remark. Then enclose the side with commas. What is it you want to say?
John is noisy.
That's the main thing you want to say. John is noisy. How many Johns do we have in here? Uh-huh. Could you add a little something extra to help let us know which John you mean?
I could use an aside.
Try it.
John, the one on my left, is noisy.
Now, if you were writing, we couldn't see you point. How would you do it if you were writing?
John, the one on my left, is noisy.
All right. John, be quiet. Helen, don't be a squealer. Now, everyone, let's pretend that you have commas on your hands. Let's read the following unpunctuated sentence and then pick out the aside together. Ready? Let's do it. Squire Notworthy, the fiend, was up to no good. How did we know that the fiend was extra information and therefore an aside? Because you can leave it out and the sentence still makes sense. And what mark do we use to enclose asides?
Comma.
Right. Now we get into some tricky stuff. Remember, I'm still talking only about asides. But if you'll remember, there are other ways to gesture asides besides this. Remember the woman who touched her hair when she did an aside?
The one with the bleached hair?
And remember the one who just glanced aside?
Let me see.
We have many ways of gesturing asides. We may point, for example. John, be quiet. Helen, don't be a squealer. If we address somebody directly when we are speaking or writing, do you know what that's called?
Direct address.
That wasn't so hard, but I call that an aside too. Why? Because if I just say, you are noisy, or John is noisy, those are simple, complete sentences. But if I add a direct address, it's like interrupting my main thought to point a finger at someone to whom I'm speaking. You, John, are noisy. It's almost like interrupting my thought to point a light at someone. John, I see you are behaving yourself. Helen, I am speaking directly to you. Are you listening, Mr. Smith, to what I am saying? I'm speaking to you, John. Dear sir, I am now addressing you. Would you, Mary, turn the lights on? Thank you for turning the lights on. Thank you, Mary, for turning the lights on. The direct address could be left in or left out. Since it's something extra we add, an aside, we always separate the direct address with
Comma.
or commas. Here are other ways we sometimes gesture asides. We nod our head yes, or we shake our head no. We often do. Yes, we often do. Yes and no. when they are used in a sentence that way, are asides. Well, after all, they don't contribute to my main thought. I could say, for example, that answer is correct. I'm just adding a little something extra for emphasis when I say, yes, that answer is correct, or no, that answer is not correct. But when I'm writing, how does the reader know whether I'm nodding or shaking my head?
Comma.
Yes, that is correct. Before or during our main thought, we sometimes tilt our head back to think, saying, let me see, or, well, or, Do you ever do that? Before you give the answer to a question, say, well, and then go on to state what you meant to say? That extra added thought is an aside. Needs a comma. I could say, for example, you may be right. I'm just adding a little indication of my doubt when I say, well, you may be right. If it's a thought added, it's an aside. Therefore,
Comma.
What if I leave the comma out? Suppose somebody asks me where water comes from. I'm not sure. But I think about it, and here's what I say. I thought well water came from the ground, that you had to pull it up out of the ground in buckets. Let's put the comma in and see what happens. Ah, that shows me it's a different kind of well. That well is a little bit of thinking I was doing on the side. Well, comma, water comes from the sky. So you see, you do need the commas. There's only one rule for asides, and it covers everything I've shown you. And that rule is, anything that breaks into your main idea may be treated as an aside. Here's a main idea. We've been picking on John, so let's make it up to him with this sentence. I think that John is smart. I'm going to break into that thought with another kind of aside. If you think commas are hard, you should try breaking into a sentence this way. Whew. Okay. Now I'm going to break into this complete thought by adding a few extra asides. Someone tells me that John has been getting poor grades, to which my reply is, I think, however, that John is smart. Or someone claims that I once said that John was dumb, to which my reply is, I think now that John is smart. I can even add an extra aside at the beginning of the sentence. For instance, I think now that John is smart. Any addition, interruption, or qualification of the main sentence thought is an aside. That's all there is to it. Learn to pick out your main thought, and everything else is an aside. Separate all asides with commas, and you will have mastered more than half of the uses of the comma. I won't review what I've said, because the best way to do that is to look at the film again, after you've practiced. There are many fun ways in which to practice asides. Now, audience, the rest is up to you.
This, we do believe, ends part one.
All right, so This is Skip and Film Adventures in Books Are for Burning. So I'm going to go to the film. And there I am with the scanner. Tell us any. Going into the film. So you see he's actually, like, where is it? Can't even see. It's right here. I'm going into. Then there's the guy from Books Are for Burning, and I'm going gasp. Then I leave that and I go into the Shake Hands with Danger, and you see there's some guy going, ah, it's falling, his hard hat's falling off. Then I'm not sure what's going on here. There's a variety of different things happening. This is, what does that say? Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. Oh, Count Spyro keys. Oh, wow. So they found a copy of Count Spyro online, and so those are images from it. And then there's Katrina there in the corner. Then Smokey the Bear. I'm with Smokey the Bear. And then here I am. I'm back. And lasagna. A+. And then it says on the back, we can't comment. We don't have YouTube accounts. We are just kids. So there you go. So that last film was Taking Commas Aside. And it's part of that punctuation series that Centron Films did, where they start off with kind of an interesting concept, and then they drive it into the ground. And then it's like, oh my God, it just keeps going and going and going. And then how lazy was that at the end? It's like, well, I could review with you, or better yet, you could just watch the film again. It's like, we don't have enough time. We showed all these examples. Oh, boy. I love Centron, but the punctuation series is zany, but then it gets tedious. But that won't keep me from showing them more of them in the future. Let's learn about our inheritance from the past. Enjoy.
The times in which we live are called the present. It's easy to see the present. We have only to look around us. The past is all around us too, if we know how to look for it. Sometimes we stumble upon the past, even when we aren't looking for it. Of course, it isn't every day that we unearth a relic of the days when Indians hunted here. But when we look at our modern world through the eyes of history, we can see much of our inheritance from the past. For instance, looking at a modern steel axe, we can see in it an early Indian stone axe, typical of those from which our modern axe developed. In the same way, we can see our inheritance in other modern things. Money, for example, which had its origin in beads and salt and metal rods and other articles thousands of years ago. We can see our inheritance in a watch, developed from the ancient sundials as a method of recording the passage of time. Yes, we can see our inheritances all around us, in the country, in the city. When we look through the eyes of history, we can see the many contributions of the past to our modern life. For our world today is a mixture of the achievements of many nations of many ages, achievements which had their origins in ancient Egypt, in Palestine and Mesopotamia,
in Greece and in Rome, in India and in China, in Western Europe and in the British Isles, and in the customs and practices of the Indians who originally lived in North America. Our debt to the past is a debt to past achievements of men who lived all over the world. To understand this inheritance and to know how to recognize it, let's look for it in this modern farm. Take this cultivator. Its history begins 5,000 years ago. That's when the plow was invented in Egypt. Men began to cultivate the soil, sow crops, and harvest them. By medieval times, men had learned to rotate crops to maintain the fertility of soil. Direct fertilization of crops was practiced by the North American Indians 400 years ago. All these skills of farming were practiced by hand until very recent years. Now machinery is used to do the same things. Haying, cultivating, fertilizing. And today, as in this rice paddy, even the airplane is used to do the work of planting. Thus, agriculture, beginning in Egypt 5,000 years ago, spreading through the ancient world, added to in the medieval Europe of 1,000 years ago, refined and developed, added to by the American Indians, such is the history of but one of our inheritances. Look again. Now can you see in the present some of our inheritances from the past? You can find such inheritances wherever you look. This highway, what do you see? Just a modern road? Look again through the eyes of history. All roads lead to Rome. 2,000 years ago, the Romans turned trails into roads, and roads into a great system. Hard surfaced roads built to last, many of them still in use today. But more important yet is the knowledge of road construction discovered by the Romans. Modern road building machinery is new, but behind it lie knowledge and skills developed through the centuries. As you watch this activity, can you see the road builders of ancient Rome? Where else can we see the past mingled with the present? What about this truck? Let's look at just one element, the wheel. Many thousand years ago, before the plow, men saw in a rolling log the principle of the wheel. When men learned to make a wheel and mount it on an axle, modern transportation began. From this ancient starting point, the use of the wheel developed through the contributions of many men of many nations. Better and better vehicles were mounted on better wheels. Wheels to set our vehicles in motion. Wheels to transfer motion from one axle to another in machines great and small, and from one machine to another. The wheel is an important working part of almost every machine in use today. Again, we see a better present built on the contributions of the past. Yes, the present is rich with inheritances from the past. To see them, we must look with interest and with knowledge. Knowledge itself is an inheritance from the past. Knowledge comes to us through the wisdom we take from other persons who are living or who have lived. Knowledge today is passed on from one to another, much as wise men thousands of years ago gave knowledge to the children of their tribes. And as in ancient Greece, when philosophy reached great heights, in the teachings of Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. In our first universities, founded in the Middle Ages, and in our modern classes and schools, knowledge is still given by word of mouth. Over this same period of time, another method of transmitting knowledge developed. When we look at someone writing, we can see our inheritance from medieval times, when men inscribed the wisdom of the past for the people of the present future. And we can see further our inheritance from Egyptian hieroglyphics and other ancient writing, such as cuneiform. Printing had its beginnings in ancient China. Then, as printing presses were developed and improved, knowledge was made available to all people who could read intelligently. So it is that today the wisdom of yesterday is open to all of us. Once more, let's look about and see the past mingling with the present. Sometimes it isn't easy to see the contributions of the past. Where can we see them in this modern building? We must look through the eyes of history. Look for the post and lintel that came from ancient Egypt. Look for the Greek concept of form and symmetry. Look for the arches and vaults used by the Romans 2,000 years ago. Look for building materials that have come from science and research that began in the Middle Ages and continues today. And look for mathematics and mathematical expressions. This came to us from the Hindu people, through the Arabians who carried it across North Africa, into Spain and Europe, where it was adopted by the Western world. Yes, all this and more lies behind a modern building. You can find it if you look with interest and knowledge. Wherever you look at the present, you can see the past. In this church, you can see a great religious tradition and way of life. In modern commerce, you can find customs and systems of trade more than 2,000 years old. In the city itself, you can see patterns of living that have been developing for centuries, from the times of nomadic tribes and people. Yes, in the city and in the country, you can find parts of our inheritance from the past. What we do with it, what we add to it, will be important to the future. For remember, future generations will count our contributions in their inheritance from the past.
What, may I ask, is a dear little cupcake like you? Child, we haven't had school or books in ages.
No school? Really?
Why don't you get rid of that school book? You can drop them in here.
It'll get all burned up in there.
Well, of course it will, dear child. And so it should. Books tamper with man's basic, natural ignorance. Now, what could be worse than that?
But I can't burn this book. It's school property.
Nonsense! Apple sugar. You just need to get into the mood.
Books are not where it's at, teaching you how to spell cat. I know you'd rather play, so why don't you throw all your books away? Books are made for burning, the fire is already yearning to put an end to any learning.
1, 3, 5, 9, throw them in the fire dry.
Put the books in the fire, see the flames growing higher. Burning books is our heart's desire.
2, 4, 6, 8, time to incinerate.
Books books will not make you wise, and reading's bad for your eyes. I am sure you agree. So why don't you give all your books to me? Books are made for burning, fire is already yearning, to burn and to any learning. But this one here is very good about a man named Robin Hood. Put the books in the fire, see the flames growing higher, burning books is our heart's desire. Though I never liked Tom Sawyer, I won't be a book destroyer. Books can only confuse, teaching you things you can't use. You should listen to me. Burning your books will set your mind free. Books make the burning, fire is already yearning, put into any learning. Put the books in the fire, see the flames going higher, burning books is our heart's desire. Books make the burning, fire is already yearning, put into any learning. No, stop!
All right, so I haven't shown that in a while. That is from the film Magnificent Major, which is an odd film about reading. It features a young Tisha Campbell who later shows up in Martin and some other things. Anyways, very talented singer, and she goes to the future because she's irritated that she has a book report about Wizard of Oz. She goes to the future where books have been banned and are burned, and so that's what this is all about, and that's what Peter was illustrating here. Is when I got caught in the books are for burning film, and so that's what that is. There's your backstory for that. And I've been wanting to show that for a while. I love that film, and specifically that song. The film has some other great songs as well, but there you go. All right. What do we got here? Yeah, okay, let's learn. This film's called Bush Country. Enjoy.
North of the Ottawa River in eastern Canada lies a great expanse of forest primeval, a seemingly limitless horizon sprinkled with tens of thousands of lakes like raindrops on a lush green carpet. These lakes, accessible only by airplane, are veritable Valhallas for camping and fishing enthusiasts. Once the exclusive vacation province of determined male Isaac Waltons, the miracle of modern transportation has brought this rich paradise within reach of any vacationing family with a yen for the great outdoors. Versatile bush pilots operating planes of amazing capabilities are largely responsible for bringing the thrill of a truly wilderness excursion to the average family. These planes can carry with ease the mountains of camping and fishing equipment needed to keep mother and small children comfortable and happy in the wilds. Using floats in the summer, skis in the winter, the bush plane is genuinely a can-do piece of equipment. Ferrying the family from the last roads of civilization, the bush pilot locates exactly a small campsite set up by pre-arrangement with two Cree Indian guides. The guides, Ken Jacot and George Baptiste, are on the spot to offer a backwoods welcome and take over where the pilot leaves off. Though the canoe is still the classic mode of transportation in the Canadian bush, it has been given an assist by the modern outboard motor and a lift by the modern airplane. This family brings all their own pet equipment including their favorite fishing rods and sleeping bags. Everything else is arranged by the guides. This is a trip into a woodland paradise with a minimum of bother. The pilot, Sam Rowe, is an amiable sort, characteristic of Canadians. He will be back on schedule to pick up the adventurers a few days hence. These explorers are well armed for life in the wilderness, even to their Mercury outboard motor, a convenience that has become a necessity. Small, powerful, and a miser on gasoline, this motor will expand the area of operations considerably. Ken and George have been here for several days, are well acquainted with the surrounding country. About all that remains to make these woods a home is the erection of the family's tent. That's part of the thrill for the kids, a lesson in the great outdoors that will never be learned as well in any classroom. This is practical application of the printed words in outdoor books. Centuries of tradition and heritage make French-Canadian guides among the best in the business, masters at woodcraft and magicians at creating tools from forest raw materials. The birch tree, relatively small in stature, is a giant in the provision of makeshift tools. The bark alone has hundreds of uses. When properly removed, it does no damage to the tree and is soon replaced without leaving a scar. In our early years, North American Indians used the bark of this tree to make everything from houses to ornaments. This particular type is sometimes called the paper birch because its bark is thin enough to write on, yet strong enough to make durable canoes. Ken is an able instructor. The kids are entranced at the running commentary as he fashions a bush hunter's horn. This country abounds with game, not the least of which is the moose. In the fall, the woods resound with their grunts and bellowings as they choose a mate for the coming winter. A bull moose will come to investigate just about any suspicious sound. This bit of bark, turned by experienced hands, is an amplifier for weird noises that sound good only to a moose. And now, ma chérie, another little trick. Watch closely. First, a perfect cut. Then a twist with just the right angle. Ah, good. Now we add the little handle. Carefully. Voila, a drinking cup. This is one way to get a sip of cool, refreshing water without getting your nose wet or dribbling down your chin. What better souvenir to take home and show to the gang? The lake is also a home for those fine freshwater trout. Since the fishing pressure is light and the water bountiful, it doesn't take long for George to pick up a real beauty. How many places do you know of where a short pause in a sightseeing trip can be so rewarding? Wow, what a face full of teeth. Just look at this scrapper. Securely hooked, he literally churns up the water. It takes a pretty fair fisherman to keep him from throwing the hook. Helen has him on this time, and she gets all kinds of advice. In the net, and let's head for home. This time they have something to show Mom and Dad. Gray and speckled trout, every one as tasty as any found on the menus of the finest restaurants. It's not often that a fat 15-incher is pulled out of the ordinary stream or lake, and when you can bring back a string like this, well, the product speaks for itself. Ken, chief cook for today, inspects the catch. Just enough for all hands to eat well tonight. A sharp knife under a steady hand, and the meat is separated into a boneless fillet. This trout is a relative of the salmon and is highly prized for both his fighting ability and his eating quality. Ken has prepared a secretly seasoned batter to enhance the delicate flavor. His newfound assistants are eager enough to help him get on with the cooking. What beautiful sights and smells, boiled coffee and deep-fried trout. To fishermen and campers, this is a picture regal enough to hang in the Museum of Fine Arts. Done to turn, more than enough for all. The magic of the outdoors works up appetites that will keep the serving line busy. The modern move to an outdoor life has been called by some a reverting to our pioneer antecedents. Perhaps it is, but you can be sure the pioneers never had it so good. We'll take nothing away from the 20th century housewife, but a camping man is sometimes moved to shaking his head in wonder.
and so to bed to dream of an untamed world. Dreams of a land of beauty and opportunity, of unspoiled wilderness, waiting for modern pioneers. Reveille. What a bugler this is, Ken and his moose call. The music may not be pretty, but certainly most effective. The noise that thing makes would wake Rip Van Winkle. For some reason, guides the world over invariably know of a place to hunt or fish that is better than wherever you happen to be at the moment. The fish in this lake, for instance, may be large and ravenous, but, monsieur, you should see the ones in the next lake. Of course, you must get up very early and work furiously to take advantage of this special treat. That's part of the game. It all goes to enhance the excitement and anticipation of any expedition. The trip will involve a portage from Lake Blue to Sand Lake. The equipment must be sorted and packed with attention, for once it is left behind, it stays there. The camp must be set to rights, fires doused, the provisions put out of the reach of bears and other nosy animals. The average camper never knows how much equipment he has brought along until he is faced with the prospect of carrying it somewhere on his back. The guides are experts at sorting the necessary from the luxury. They have to be. They end up carrying the lion's share. Once again, the outboard motor proves its usefulness. A small amount of horsepower will transport the party and all equipment to the portage and save their energy for the pack trip. The freighter canoe is a little too much to manage on a portage unless absolutely necessary. It makes a good taxi, but a heavy one. The two smaller canoes are taken along and will be converted into a single, stable fishing boat. In times past, the portage enabled the North American Indians to travel thousands of miles, taking their goods with them. Often, a relatively short overland trip put the voyagers on a waterway stretching continuously for hundreds more miles. The colonization of both the United States and Canada was due in no small way to this method of travel. The early fur trappers wandered the length of numberless waterways in search of valuable pelts. They lived off the land and carried only a birch bark canoe and the barest necessities. Today, it is still possible to span continents by canoe if you are in no hurry and don't mind a little work. Since the object is to move only that which must be taken, the aids to transport are made on the spot. An A-frame is whipped up from a maple sapling and leather thongs. Strapped on, it is a portable motor stand and will be no loss when discarded at the end of the day. Carrying canoes is a little different. When the whole thing is over your head, you are free to spend all your time stumbling over rocks and running into trees. For some reason, all portages are uphill, both ways. These hills grow during the day to become mountains on the way home. The rocky shores of Sand Lake bear a marked resemblance to the shores of Lake Blue. The fish, we are told, are nevertheless in greater number, fatter, hungrier, and better fighters. This will make all the trouble worthwhile. The game fish that abound in Canada's lakes are among its greatest attractions. Tourists spend $275 million a year, a great part of this going to the pursuit of the various kinds of trout found in the inland lakes. In order to accommodate these visitors, some strange jury rigs have been devised. Ken and George are in the process of making one canoe out of two, sort of a Canadian catamaran. Since the family wants to fish together, the canoes are spaced with cut saplings lashed firmly in place. An improvised transom to mount the motor is added, and the result is a powered pleasure barge. This is a close cousin of the outrigger canoes of the Pacific Islands, with the added advantage of passenger space in both hulls. If need be, such a contraption could carry great loads of cargo and still be disassembled into easily transportable parts. Today's human cargo is a determined group of anglers. Action is immediate. Helen, the good provider of yesterday's lunch, is at it again. The catamaran is highly serviceable as a fishing boat, but it couldn't be handled with paddles well enough to keep clear of the frantic runs of a hooked fish. Its twistings and turnings are matched by the maneuverability of the Mercury motor. A gray trout, one of the many species found in this lake, he is an able fighter and every bit as good eating as his cousin the speck.
An average specimen will weigh between 2 and 3 pounds, the largest more than 5. Just about everybody in the bush country travels by water or air, even the game warden. His territory is so large that he has to be a qualified and experienced pilot to make his rounds. Even with the remarkable bounty of Canadian wildlife, the game and fish laws are strictly adhered to. Wardens keep a close check and are not impressed by a fisherman's standard of weights and measures. Even one that says it takes 3 trout to make a string, anything over 12 is 1 dozen, and 7 ounces make a pound. A quick check of licenses and legal sizes, a little friendly conversation tells a lot. By flying from lake to lake in this vast country, the warden can control fishing and collect valuable information in days instead of months. Kippy gets in his licks too. He's pretty new at the business, but coming from an outdoor family, he catches on fast. That spinning rod is learning to talk fish language already. All it takes is special knack and a little working concentration. This one doesn't care much for the sight of the boat. Hold on, Kippy. A speckled trout this time, and a big one. He's found in nearly all parts of Canada and thrives in cool, clear water over gravel bottom. They usually grow to about 18 inches and 3 to 5 pounds. The record weighed 14 pounds and came from a Canadian river. The speck is one of the most beautifully colored of all trout. This one doesn't know he's licked. Pretty and plump as a picture by Rubens. Time for some man talk about the battle and the victim, about today and tomorrow. Bush country, this wonderful land is indeed bountiful. The countryside has a lure and magnetism all its own. The mystery and beauty of the untold ages lies at yours or any boatman's northern doorstep.
Outboard motors. We love it. Yeah, nice little travel log would be shown at the dealer of the outboard motors in your local town or city, but also would be something you could rent the film and show at your civic group or community group of men or women, or sometimes these make it to schools. So, pretty great film. It's what we call a sponsored film. It is sponsored by those outboard manufacturers, and yeah. Anyways, thanks for tuning in today. If you like what you saw, you can certainly let's make all these things visible so you can see what we're talking about. Yes, you can buy us coffee at ko-fi.com/avgeeks. You can also go to avgeeks.com. We have DVDs for sale. We also have a bunch of other stuff that we've digitized over the last 10 years or so. Thanks again for tuning in. I should say thank you for the new pennants. They fill a gap. Friday, tomorrow at 9 p.m. is when the premiere of the Found Footage Festival versus AV Geeks toe tapping tournament is going to happen. And you'll see how it plays out. Like I said, we picked our top 4 songs, and I was disappointed in the songs that got taken down. But you should watch it. I should say that it is kind of for adults. The language gets a little salty, and there might be a boob in it. Maybe. I don't know. So tune in. That's going to be on the Found Footage Festival site, but I'll also will put a link to it on my Facebook pages, etc. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Everybody take care.